So a new patch has dropped, and with it brought the new community punching bag of Challenge Mode Ice Maiden, marking a new level of difficulty to be added to the game. And if you're like me and thought this would be a breeze, well, you are in for a bit of a rude awakening. Packing roughly 2.7 times the HP of original Maiden, and then also hitting even harder, there really was only one man for the job of thawing out the Maiden. So in today's video, we'll be taking a look at my Abyss boss killer Esiemo. We'll cover all things Arche Tuning, Mutant Cell, reactors, gear, playstyle, and everything else that you may need to know. We've got a lot to cover, so as always, if that sounds good to you, then let's get to it. Alright then, so kicking things off with the module screen, we're going to be running through the basics when it comes to his kit, just in case you've never picked up Esiemo. And in some cases, I probably wouldn't blame you, but in others, what are you actually doing? Esiemo is a lot of fun to be able to play as a character, and while he's not necessarily the strongest, he is going to be packing more than enough when it comes to being able to take down the Ice Maiden in challenge mode. Now, the first place for us to be able to kind of like kickstart it off is by talking about his Transcendence mods, and there really is only one thing up for the challenge, and that is going to be Explosive Evade. What this one does is it also, when you roll around on the ground, on a cooldown, this will then place an additional landmine along with that of your skill 1 and your skill 3, and the idea with this is that you want to be able to get enemies within that range so that you can then get them attached to them and then just use blast to be able to detonate and do even more damage. Now, when it comes to blast, you don't want to be just using this every single time you cast out one of your abilities. You want to be able to stack these up as high as possible. You will see that the skill power increase is a maximum of 4 times, which is that 90% damage increase per bomb, but if you get this up to around about 7, 8 or 9, that's when you're going to start seeing the biggest amounts of chunk of HP coming off Ice Maiden, and you can easily get that stacked up by chucking down a few guided landmines, as well as being able to roll around a couple of times with your Explosive Evade, and then just filling it up with the rest of it when it comes to Time Bomb, because as you can see, the cooldown on Time Bomb is much shorter, so this is just a really good way of being able to stack up the extra when it comes to Blast. Now, due to how Ice Maiden scales with your skill power as you break off those weak points, we want to capitalise on that 10x skill power increase with modifiers and skill power in this build, along with some really nice quality of life to make sure we stay upright and also land those mines. Now, the main wins that we're going into here, we are going into a full non-crit package because Esiemo sports a 5% crit rate. So we are going into things like Focus on Fire and Focus on Tech, which are going to give us modifier and skill power, but also help us out with the skill cooldown, because we want to be able to spam our abilities as much as possible. We also go into the Amplification mod, but we only go into Fire Amplification. We don't need any extra, because you can see the modifiers on the 3 as well as your passive are already pretty high in the first place, so we kind of get diminishing returns when it comes to going into extra modifier with those. Instead, what we've replaced that with is Fire Synxium, because this is going to give us additional fire skill power, and then that allows us to be able to actually do even more damage compared to even with the modifiers and everything like that. So that's just a really nice way of being able to go into that. We also round up the cooldown side of things with Nimble Fingers and MP Conversion. This is just pretty much standard. This allows us to be able to get our skill cooldown up to 74.3% before we factor in anything else when it comes to like Arche Tuning, or when it comes to like anything else that's really pretty much gear based in terms of our kit. We also then chuck in Maximize Conservation. We are going to be spamming everything to do with our abilities, so the idea of being able to cut down our cost means that we can have even more MP to be able to start casting more of those abilities, so Maximize Conservation absolutely does make the list for this. We have gone for Skill Expansion. I did mess about with taking this one off, but this one just gives you such good quality of life, especially with your roll and especially with your guided landmine, because these ones will be landing at your feet, and it's not like your skill 1 where you can just kind of cast these out and they will just like randomly stick to or randomly guide themselves towards the enemy or anything like that. So you do need the extra, like the range on this to be able to make sure that they do fall within that detection radius and make sure that the mines stick. And then lastly, we have gone for a nice little combination of increased HP for tankiness and anti-freeze solution. Now, the reason why this one's made the cut, to be fair, you can maximize this out if you want to. It's fine just even at base. The extra chill resistance is kind of mediocre, but the main thing, that the reason why we want this is for that frostbite immunity, because there is going to be so many times that Ice Maiden is going to be trying to freeze you, and if you get froze, there is going to be an instant death sentence. So being able to make sure that we can never get frozen, making sure that we always have our mobility, is absolutely crucial, and that is why that has to make the list. So now that we've covered everything to do with modules, let's start talking about reactors. Of course, because everything to do with tech and because everything we've built into so far in terms of all of its build has been tech-based, we are going into a burning mechanics reactor. This is going to be able to maximize out the damage on our mines, whether that's our time bomb, our landmine, or even our passive with the Evade Red mod. When it comes to mounting-wise, if you were to max out the DPS of this build, you would want both a tactical rifle and a handgun mounting, and this will allow you to be able to plant mines while you're shooting off the weak points with your handgun, but to be fair, just the tactical rifle is absolutely fine if you can get it, and I'll go into a little bit more detail when we get to the weaponry section side of things. Now as for the sub-rolls, Colossus attack and tech ratio is best in slot, but if you have a Colossus and fire ratio, that also works. Just know that you will be losing out slightly on DPS just when it comes to your skills compared to that of the tech ratio. Tech ratio is best in slot, and that pretty much wraps up for everything to do with the reactors. Now, components have had a little bit of a change recently in one of the patches, mainly because we now have component cores, so we will be discussing that a little bit more in depth when we get to that section, but it is pretty much bog standard. It's the same that you're probably going to see across every single build, in terms of like max HP just being always king. But when it comes to components, I've messed around with a couple of solutions, but while on paper max skill power does sound the best, I found that due to the prolonged fight, it's worth having a mixture so that we can go for a 2-piece into Plague, and then we can also go into a 2-piece into Hunter. This allows us to be able to maximize out on tech skill power, so we will be getting even more damage from that side, and then we're also getting the benefit of the additional skill cooldown, which is actually kind of huge. This does really help us out when it comes to the timing of our evades. It also helps us out with the timings of our landmines, and especially since our skill 3 is where most of our DPS is going to be coming from, we want to be able to get those mines back as fast as possible, so the more that we can start pushing towards the cooldown cap, the better, and that means that we can start spamming our skills a little bit more freely, and that helps us out when it comes to our tactical rifle of choice. Now ideally when it comes to this, you would want to go for the auxiliary power and the memory to be that of Plague, and then the sensor and the processor to be that of Hunter, as this grants more HP and thus makes it an easier fight and makes it a little bit more tanky, but you can get away with this kind of setup. It doesn't matter too much, but if you were looking to be able to min-max in terms of being able to get even more HP than what you can see on the screen right now, then that is going to be the way that you'll be able to push that. Now ideally though will be the substats of each piece. This is a bit more crucial as HP and MP are absolutely essential for fast runs and survival. So you will need max HP and MP recovery out of combat here on the auxiliary power. You will need max MP and MP recovery in combat on your sensor. You will need defense and MP recovery modifier, mostly the MP recovery modifier, but the defense is absolutely kind of like quite nice as well when it comes to your memory. And then lastly, your processor doesn't matter too much, but max shield probably will help you out a little bit of being able to absorb an extra hit. The MP rolls are crucial because you will be chucking out so many of your mines, you will be spamming all of your abilities, and if you don't have those on there, you will then start seeing that you will have an MP shortage, and if you have an MP shortage, you will then be left at times where you won't be able to drop any kind of mines, and that means that you're not going to be dealing any kind of like DPS. Now as for the component cores, max HP on all pieces is ideal, making you pretty tanky overall. This does work quite nicely and in tandem with that of the blue mod that we do have slotted in when we had a look at the module screen. But as for the other slots, chill damage is prevalent in the fight, so I would recommend a nice balance of 2 defense and 2 chill resist, allowing you to be able to take both chill and physical attacks. Now you will notice that I have 3 pieces with defense and 1 with chill resistance. That's just because I am trying to get all the cores to be able to mess about with different sets, but if you are looking to be able to do pretty well in this fight, if you want to be able to take both the chill and the physical side of things pretty well, then you will need to be able to have a mixture of both of those. Now as for the weaponry, for the full fight we will be using 3 guns. One is going to be boosting our skill power as a stat stick, one is going to be breaking the chest weak point much easier, and one is going to be breaking the other 4, and then for mobbing should we need it. Now when it comes to the stat stick, in terms of the one that we're going to be boosting our skill power, that is going to be Secret Garden. In case you are not aware of Secret Garden, you're probably new to the channel. In that case, the reason why we do use a fully kitted out Secret Garden is because of these pest control stacks right here, and because we are going to be using tech skills, and every single one of those mines we're going to be dropping is going to have a chance of being able to proc this. This will then give us additional skill power so we can do even more damage with all of our abilities. Now in terms of like the build on it, it doesn't really matter too much. You can get away with anything really. I did go for Brisk Walk just to be able to help us out with movement speed and allows us to be able to, so we can dodge a few of the abilities that Ice Maiden is going to be chucking out, but as long as you have something that's going to be helping you do a little bit of damage to some of the adds just in case you need to be able to use this to clear them up and you don't want to swap over to Last Dagger, as long as you're able to crank out some DPS, you'll be absolutely fine when it comes to Secret Garden. Now, the main things that you probably should focus on, though, are going to be the weapon cores, and that is going to be things like sprint speed and also grapple hook. This is going to be your mobility, so this allows you to be able to make sure that you stay active during the fight, and it allows you to be able to dodge a number of the skills that Ice Maiden is going to be chucking at you. So, yeah, even though you do have a pretty good HP stat, this will make sure that you're able to dodge some of the abilities, so you don't have to constantly go worrying about where those HP balls are going to be dropping. Now, if you do want to see the extra rolls down here, you can see those, but it doesn't really matter too much in all honesty. Like I said, it is more about the movement ability, and then also being able to have the weapon active so that you do have it for your unique ability and just as a stat stick. Now, the next weapon that we're going to be using is going to be the weapon that will kickstart the fight off, and then also in the second phase, after she kneels down and resets all of her weak points again, we will be using this to be able to make sure that we can break that chest piece, because it is notorious for being able to be difficult to break with any other weapon. And that is going to be the Restored Relic. The reason why we use the Restored Relic is because it is a ridiculously fast-firing RPG. If you do have this fully built up, as you can currently see here, the weapon cores are quite important. Being able to go into triple into fire rate X, and then also being able to go into fire attack is also going to make sure that you actually break those pieces off. But of course, maximizing out on fire rate is kind of crucial to be able to get the most out of it. As you can see here, I do sit at a 400 fire rate, which means that I'm able to just spam the whole magazine out pretty quickly. When it comes to the build, though, we are going to into multi-hit because it is fantastic at being able to go into with the Restored Relic. We do also go into rounds per magazine, as well as expand high power magazine. The reason why I've gone for the side of things, we are looking to be able to maximize our magazine size, because going for 12 to 13 rockets isn't enough for the start of the fight to be able to both break the covering as well as the chest piece. So we do push this up closer to 19 to be able to then pretty much essentially guarantee it. It's not always 100%, but it is pretty much like about 95 to 99% chance on my side of things. So this is the build that I probably would recommend, so that you can guarantee as much as possible when it comes to being able to break that one troublesome piece. It's just a really good way of being able to start that fight off. Now, if you want to see the extra rolls that I do have here, like I said, those are the weapon cores right there, but we also got into fire attack, explosive attack, multi-hit damage, and then I still have the weapon change speed left over from when I was messing about with Ultimate Blare, being able to push up the higher on those leaderboards for the normal version of that, of the same fight when it comes to the Abyss. Now, as for the last weapon, we are going for Last Dagger, because this is pretty much the best kind of like single target damage gun that pretty much exists out there, and it doesn't require any kind of like debuffs to be able to apply to the enemy as well. So we will be looking to be able to use this just to be able to spray down the rest of those weak points, so the extremities like the two shoulder pieces as well as the two pieces on the legs. So we want to be able to maximize the amount of damage that we can do with this. Now, I do have this built slightly different from that of Purge Daggers, as the magazine size is kind of ideal for being able to spray down those weak points, as we're going to be having less reloads. So going into rounds per magazine on those two cores that you can see there, and then also going into firearm critical hit damage is just kind of like a really nice generic kind of Last Dagger to be able to take into this fight. Now, if you want to see the build, this is the one I've been messing about with, because we are primarily focusing on weak points. Going for something like Tenacious Hunter is a great way of being able to get even more damage and being able to break those parts as fast as possible. We have gone into crit as well, we have gone into fire, we have gone into weak points as well, but the fire rate up and being able to get extra additional like magazine size is also quite nice, and that allows you to be able to get up to 50 in the magazine, I believe it was, if I remember right. There we go. So it's also a really good stat stick to be able to use right there. Now, while the full auto fire is also pretty damn good, the reload mechanic on this is also fantastic at being able to break parts off too, especially in one single shot, but it does require a little bit of aim, and it does require some luck to make sure it's still a crit, because you do have the Abyss fight where Ice Maiden is a 50% resistance to critical hits. So you do have a little bit of RNG involved in that, but the Last Dagger is fantastic and probably the best weapon at being able to break off the remaining weak points to be able to get the additional skill power, and then you can prop off by then going back to your secret garden. Now, swapping on over to the Arche Tuning side of things, no mutant cells are required for this build, but you could throw in a fire cohesion to be able to give you more skill power when eliminating the extra enemies that she spawns for a short window, to give you additional skill power at a 50% chance after you eliminate every single one of those enemies. Now, as for the main focuses though, if you want the consistent side of things, and this is the one that I've been using in the gameplay that's been shown in the background, we are looking to be able to get as much skill power as possible, and this includes the extra to the Colossus damage on the right hand side. We do round this off with a little bit more cooldown, and then we get a little bit of extra HP to be able to get us that close to that 20k HP, so even more if you have the right components, essentially, like we've talked about in that section as well. Now as for Inversion Reinforcement, because Ice Maiden in challenge mode won't take any form of debuff, focus rounds are now dropped in place of being able to get ourselves some resistance, and this helps us out with being a little bit more tanky. We do have Arche Circulation in here to be able to give us a bit more cooldown so that we can hit the cap from time to time. We have Selective Neurostimulation to be able to help keep us topped up with MP as the fight goes on, and then we also have Antibody Explosion, which gives us the resistance, the base resistance as well, needed to be able to take a few hits and still be fine. And because this is an additional, this is going to be then going against our base, and because we have those really nice selections on the component core side of things, giving us additional percentage to the amount of chill resistance we have, this would then mean that we're not just getting 2050, we will be benefiting from all those percentages that we do have from our component cores, meaning that we have even more resistance than what it currently shows on paper. And with all that out of the way, that wraps it up for Esiemo's Maiden Killer build. While I do have some thoughts on the boss fight, I might cover it in a separate video soon. Overall, I did welcome and enjoy the challenge with Esiemo, and it did feel so satisfying to break into the top 10 with him. I did feel sorry for some descendants getting shafted due to the changes in the fight stopping debuffs, but I hope the next one carrying on with the idea of mechanics for boss fights rather than just making them big HP targets. So this is the section I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Ice Maiden? Are you looking forward to the Ultimate Luna to drop? And lastly, which descendant do you want to see me update build-wise next? Let me know all that and more down below. A massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. As I always say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on the next video.